Hello and welcome to our interview, The Power of the Partnership, hosted by Executive Assistance Organization. I'm your host, Victoria Louise Rabin, the CEO of Executive Assistance Organization and the creator of Behind Every Leader. We are proud and privileged to have Monique Helstrom here with us today, Chief of Sinek. Every day, Monique Helstrom lives her why. She wakes up to figure out the solution to a problem. Sometimes solutions are routine and repetitive. Sometimes they're new and unique. Sometimes there's just no obvious solution. What drives Monique to get things done, however, is that she knows that there will be a benefit from the blood, sweat, and tears that she invests. And that's where the joy of her work comes to life. Working alongside New York Times best-selling author and TED celebrity Simon Sinek, Monique is the how girl to this why guy. With the official title of Simon Sinek, Chief of Simon, Monique works passionately to help build, organize, and bring to life the vision that Simon espouses, to build a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single day inspired to go to work, feel safe when they're there, and return home feeling fulfilled. With more than 13 years as an event planner and a professional organizer, Monique knows inspiration only comes to life if there's a good process to back it up. If the angel is in the details, then Monique is that angel. So welcome, Monique, to our interview series. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Victoria. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, you and I actually met at the Behind Every Leader conference, and I was very excited because, as you know, and many of my team know at EAO, I'm a huge fan of Simon, and I was just excited to pick your brain and know what it's like to work for an entrepreneur that's constantly traveling the globe and also has a vision that we all share and love. So it was a real privilege to meet you, and I'm just equally as excited to have you sharing your expertise and knowledge with our audience.
Well, and I thank you for everything you've done to bring light to this position and passion position for a lot of people of the executive assistant that's often forgotten. And thank you for bringing this to light.
Well, I think that never a dull moment is how we live here. Just like I think every assistant, they understand that in its entirety.
Absolutely.
One of the one of the key things that we get asked a lot, and not just by assistants, actually by a lot of CEOs that follow us and really respect what we're doing just because they see how important it is to have an executive assistant that's also a partner to them, to their business, and to their vision. We get asked all the time, what is it that makes an assistant a partnership? Or I should say the relationship between the executive and the assistant, a partnership, because it does take time. Like any relationship, there's a lot of trust that's involved.
Mhm.
You really do need to work alongside each other and learn each other's intricacies and, the nuances of each other, both professionally and personally. So we want to really dig into what your thought process on what it takes to be a partner to your executive and not just living within the role of an assistant or what we call a typical assistant, because here at EAO we're anything but. So I wanted to pick your brain and see what your thoughts are and see a little bit about your background as well at the same time.
Okay. Um, the difference between the typical quote unquote assistant and a partner, I think, has a lot to do with the relationship with their executive. You can hire an assistant to do things that an assistant does. They have to be organized and a high caring level, a self starter, an activator, organized, all of those things that are in the quality set of an executive assistant. But in order to bridge that gap to be more of a partner, I believe there's a few things that go into it. Again, the relationship building, it takes a long time to build a relationship in any aspect of life, a friendship, a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever it may be. Those things take time, and it's no different with the relationship of an executive. But I feel where the switch happens to becoming more of a partner is when an executive can it can provide loads and loads and loads of context to the assistant about what their direction is, about where they're going, what are their priorities, what are their goals. And the more context they can give, the assistant, who can then become the partner, can now take different routes in order to get to the goal or the priority that the executive talks about and work more autonomously to achieve those goals in ways that an executive might not know. Showing the end goal will give the assistant the freedom and, again, the autonomy to be able to help in other ways that maybe was not something that the executive thought of.
And do you feel that there's certain qualities that an executive would look for in an assistant? And how would you identify those qualities in the very early stages?
In the very early stages, I mean, I understand the need for a resume. I understand the need to hire for a certain skill set. Again, being organized, being attentive, being able to work autonomously. These are things that are incredibly important. And I don't think you can be an executive assistant without having some of those qualities. But in order to have someone that can become a long-term partner, I feel like you have to ask about values. You have to hire slowly, take time to learn about them as a person, what makes them tick. um, Knowing sort of what's behind the assistant can help bridge, again, that gap to becoming a partner. Resourcefulness is always something that is incredibly important, to being an assistant. Being able to solve a problem that looks like it has no end to it and you have no idea how to solve it. I'd say that's by far the biggest thing that I use on a daily basis.
And also, I want to also find out from you what qualities you look for in an executive. But for those of the audience that haven't had the opportunity or have had the benefit, like I have, of knowing about Simon, why don't you tell them a little bit about his background, his vision, what he's been doing, and why you so greatly follow his vision as well?
Absolutely. I have known Simon for quite a long time, prior to his book, prior to the TED Talk, and prior to all of those things. So I knew him as a person before I knew him as the celebrity known as Simon Sinek. But um, his goal is to build this amazing world where people go home every day feeling fulfilled by their work. He goes out there every day inspiring people to do the things that inspire them. And he's out there banging that drum every single day, showing people that it's a right, not a privilege, to enjoy your work and to feel safe while you're there and to come home feeling fulfilled by it. He has written 2 books: Start with Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action, and his latest book, Leaders Eat Last: Why Some Teams Pull Together and Others Don't. Most of his fame comes from his TED Talk, where he is now the third most popular TED Talk of all time.
Yeah, we heads up in our webinar yesterday. I was showing a lot of our EAs some great resources on leadership, and I gave him a bit of a shout out, our favorite TED Talk, so you can tell I'm a fan.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
No problem. So going back on the original question, what qualities do you look for in an executive?
Well, I have always liked to align myself with people doing good in the world. I have a passion for that, to leaving this world better than when I got here. So I've always tried to align myself with those people in general. For a long time, felt I want to say I felt bad about my skill set. I was always very type A. I was always very organized. But I never felt like I had the big grand ideas where I could come up with a product and patent it, or come up with a book and write it. I was always the person that could get the things done. Um, and I did. I saw that as a weakness for a long time, that I was so type A, that I was so organized that I couldn't see outside my own Excel spreadsheet. But once I aligned myself with the why guy, Simon Sinek, who is out there really banging that drum, trying to make the world a better place, but his skills do not lie in execution. That's where I felt like my skill set really gave a meaningful impact to the world, aligning myself with them. So my advice is, work for someone that you believe in, work for someone that you would trust and agree with what they're doing and respect their position in the world. It's very hard to do this job in general, let alone do it for someone who you don't like and wouldn't want to hang out with or go get a beer with after you're done work.
Yeah, I agree. We hear some stories, good, but quite a few not so good on how assistants are having to work alongside someone that they truly just do not believe the vision,
Yeah.
or even more importantly, they just don't believe their leadership style. Some of them feel that they're certainly not in a partnership, more that they are in a situation where they're spoken down to, they're
Mhm.
not respected. So it is rare, which is sad to say, but it is rare when you have an assistant that has such an insatiable thirst for the vision of their executive, the company, and their team as a whole. So I love what you're doing, and I hope that this will inspire assistants to really think about what place they're in right now with their executive and their company. Are they enjoying what they do? Are they happy
Mhm.
to go to work every day? And also, are they a part of that vision? It's not about just following it, it's about being a part of it, making that change, having a say, and having their voice heard, because that's what makes going to work every day not going to work at all. So
Absolutely. Again, it is a very tough job to be an assistant. No day is the same. You are thrown impossible problems. It is never ending. There are long hours. There are lots of details that you have to do. And to do that for someone who you know is respecting the work that you do is way easier than doing it for someone who you do not respect and they do not respect you. Um, there are people out there, for all the executive assistants out there, there are CEOs and executives out there who will treat you with respect and understand that the skill set you have is the ultimate bonus for them. So I encourage you to find that person.
agreed, agreed. And I think that you as an individual and your values is usually the most important thing, because you can train anyone to do anything. You need to have that good foundation of a person that's willing to be your partner and share your vision and be by your side, good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah,
So I think that a lot of executives, they do focus on finding that individual that see that they can actually mold and that they can grow, that they can mentor, and then all of the skill sets that just can come naturally once they're happy in their role. So
sure.
again, it's hard to find that one, just like a relationship, but I'm sure that once you do, you'll know.
Absolutely. Your values are at the core of your person. They guide every decision that you make. And if your values are not aligned with your executive, it's really tough to do this job and to do it well and successfully. Some skills, again, you have to have some essential skills in order to be an executive assistant. But yes, skills can be taught. Values are who you are. Hire for values, not skill set.
Agreed. And still going, keeping on the momentum of the initial stages of your initiation with your executive, did you ever have that important conversation where you basically outline the rules and preferences and boundaries
Mhm.
in the professional partnership between yourself and Simon? Because I think that that is an incredible way of just having a great insight as to what lies ahead,
Mhm.
and without having to make a ton of mistakes and going through this delicate dance of, am I doing the right thing, or am I on the right path? Is he or she happy, etc. Just laying it out right in the beginning.
Mhm. To a certain extent, we did, but most of it has evolved over time. Simon was my first official job as an executive assistant. I've talked to a lot of executive assistants where somehow they just fell into a job of being an executive assistant. And a lot of times when it becomes their first job, this conversation is hard to have at the beginning because you really don't totally know what to expect. You don't even know what your own boundaries are at that point because you don't really know what to expect of the relationship. So I think while we had some semblance of this conversation in the beginning, most of it has evolved over time. And I don't think we'll ever stop having that conversation as we grow as human beings. Again, like you said, you don't really know the rules at the beginning. The relationship is new. There is that dance to it. One person pulls, one person pushes. You find that rhythm, but the key to that is communication, without a doubt. If boundaries are pushed, expressing that in a constructive and solutions focused manner, as opposed to getting angry, getting spiteful, internalizing it and sweeping it under the rug, and then keeping that in your gut for 6 weeks. That is definitely not the way to go about it. Allowing that communication to take you where it constantly morphs and constantly grows, I think, is the key.
Absolutely, and we also provide some great, resources for assistants that are not sure on the questions that they should ask in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also now seeing that we're being asked by many executives and CEOs, what do I do with this new person in my life? I've never had an assistant, and I'm not sure exactly where we should be, starting off, or what I should be, asking her to be doing, etc. So we are a really great resource for both the executive and the assistant if and when they need us to kind of give them those
And I think
initial
that
insights.
the training for an executive is essential. I feel like that is a part that has not been focused on. So I applaud you for going down that route. I feel like at one point you're doing well at your job and you keep getting promoted and keep getting promoted, and one day somebody says, "Hey, you're the director of X department, and by the way, here's Linda. She's going to be your executive assistant." Then you go, well, what do I do with her? What do I give her? How do I do that? Like, somebody just gives you a person and you're supposed to know what to do with it. So that training of, being able to provide tons and tons and tons of context, giving away baby tasks at first, then growing those tasks to sort of challenge the situation over and over and over again, keeping up with your priorities and your goals, and constantly talking about those over and over again. I think those are all great lessons for an executive.
The biggest thing that we hear from executives is about the trust factor,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the scenario that you just pointed out,
Yes.
when they are usually pretty self-sufficient. They're dealing with, all of the small daily minutiae of their world, and a lot of executives are in the position they are today because they're control freaks and they are
Absolutely.
type A personalities, and they like to have their hand in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're introduced to an assistant that is highly capable, that knows that they can really ease up a lot of time on the smaller tasks in order for them to be more successful. However, it's a really strange territory for the executive that hasn't had an assistant, because now all of a sudden, their emails are being invaded, and they
Mm-hmm.
have, access to all of these different things in their life that they are usually keeping, to themselves. So it's a really tricky, um, you know, part to play in the beginning, and that's the key thing we hear from the executives more than anything is the trust factor.
Mm-hmm.
How much, leverage should I give them? How much access can I give them? How little kind of time should I give them? It's really interesting. So we are constantly talking to CEOs, and slowly but surely, I think we're paving
Yeah.
the path to
The
them
trust
realizing that.
Trust is something that grows, as it would with a friend, a partner, someone you become into a relationship with. I mean, I constantly equate the executive assistant and executive role to a relationship. You are in a relationship with this person. And as you would do during dating, you start off small, start off slow, give little bits of information back and forth, test when you think that something could be pushed farther, see how far you can push it in, pull back when something maybe feels uncomfortable. Um, I think those are all really key factors for an executive. The other thing that I definitely know I've used with Simon is as an executive, being the control freak, not wanting to let go of entire projects, they're sort of seeing it as an entire project. Let's say it's, the financials. I'm making up an example, but giving away that portion may seem very daunting. But if you broke it down into sort of baby tasks and baby steps, maybe there are things that this person can help you with that will take the weight off of you. Maybe making sure you have all the right documents in order to have the financial conversation, making sure that the bookkeeper has gotten you what they need to, making sure that the meeting is set up, doing these little baby tasks within. Then you can start to test and see how the trust builds and see how the trust grows from there. It just takes time.
And also with that, I think it's up to the EA as well to remain curious, to have that constant thirst for learning about what is going on, within that partnership, how many projects are coming in, and just having to ask, having to sit around and wait for that executive to, pass the torch over, is to really remain curious and try and learn off the bat, just so that you know you're always a couple of steps ahead.
Absolutely.
That way you're constantly learning about, what it is that makes your executive tick. What are the projects coming in that's challenging them? What things you could do without them even having to ask that will make that challenge, disappear, if at all. So they're the kind of things that we always try and push for our assistants to stay as curious and have that thirst for knowledge when they're not asked to kind of delve into certain situations. And trust me, your executive will love you for it. Maybe not very much in the beginning, but certainly will after time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What about, obviously you and Simon have a great dialogue. You've known each other for a long time, but we are always asked, how do you deal with difficult conversations? Any insight on that?
Sure. One of our partners, Peter Docker, who works with us, says relationship is the foundation of accomplishment. And I love that. And I've used that throughout my time with Simon. You know, at the beginning, all honesty here, it's very hard at first when someone is giving you criticism or having a difficult conversation with you. You take it personally, you jump back. There were a lot of fights in the beginning. I'll be perfectly honest and say, but we know each other so well now, and we trust each other so deeply that it's not difficult to have difficult conversations. We still have difficult conversations. We just approach them better. If he has to correct me, I know he's doing it because he loves me and he wants me to grow as a person and as an executive, that he's not doing it maliciously. He's not trying to micromanage me. He's really wanting me to grow. If I have something difficult to tell him, I don't sugarcoat. I don't ask around the question. I used to do that a lot. Like, excuse me, I kind of have something to tell you. And I was mousy about it. I will tell him, hey, I have something really deep I have to talk to you about. Would you like to talk about it now, or do you want to schedule some time to talk about it later? And give him the option to come back and say, let's talk now, let's talk later. And I go into it with thought out solutions. I don't want to just go and say, I feel this way. I'm hurt. I'm mad. I don't like how this is going on. That's not helping anyone. That's putting him against the wall, putting me against the wall. Instead, come at it from the perspective, hey, I need help. I feel like this would help me do my job better. It would help me serve you better. I need some help on this problem that I'm having. And here are some solutions that I've come up with. Can you help me come up with some other solutions as well? It's scary. It's uncomfortable. It takes a lot of guts to do it. But, with any relationship, there's going to be some painful moments in there. It's how you grow. It's how you become a better team. There's just no two ways around it. You're going to have some uncomfortable moments.
And isn't it funny that, over the years, when I was working with an executive or, even being in the CEO role myself, asking anyone something when it's uncomfortable, the amount of times that they say yes so easily after all of that stress you put yourself through, especially if you, like you said, do come up with a solution or at least a few options in which you can both resolve that together, you really do amp ourselves up so much when it's unnecessary. I think that if you just take a different approach, look at it from the thought process of this is going to make my life as well as their life better, because then it seems a lot less daunting. And I just think I agree with you 100%. You just at least have a few options or a few solutions already laid out, then you're already doing half the work for them. You just need their buy-in. And that's how I think that the best way to go about it is. But definitely voice up.
In a constructive manner, absolutely. And hey, that's where trust builds. If you have that ability to really come into this meeting with thought out solutions, with answers to the problem, being mature and solution oriented about it, that's a big trust factor for you to be able to come to your executive and say that kind of a thing. He will probably turn around and go, wow, that was really difficult for her to come up to me and say that. That's really amazing. So that's how trust builds.
No, I definitely agree with you 100%. So that we can give our audience some key kind of lessons or takeaways from your experiences, your perspective on the power of the partnership, what lessons can you share with our audience from the partnership between yourself and Simon that would really improve their partnerships with their executives?
Sure. I'd have to say, and I mentioned it briefly before, about owning your strengths. Again, that this was something that was absolutely the aha moment for me to realize that my strengths were valuable, that I wasn't just a task doer, that defining myself as type A, while funny to some people, is not how I want to be defined as. So I've learned to own my own strength. I've learned strengths to use that to support. I'm the how girl to the why guy. It helps me feel valuable and effective. Um, the second thing I'd say is, and this is something that I hear a lot from my executive assistant friends, is about, I call it mood sharing. That it's tough if your executive is in a certain kind of mood, whether that's upset, angry, tired, frustrated. Let's go with the bad moods, so to speak. It ends up being the executive moods that day, and who wants to have somebody else control what kind of mood you're going to be in? It only ends up putting both of you into a rut. So choosing to be better as opposed to being bitter, and knowing that you don't need to take it personally if your executive is having a day or stressed or upset, that 99.9% of the time it doesn't have anything to do with you. And if it does have something to do with you, you should ask and have that difficult conversation. Um, and the third thing is paying attention to what they're saying behind what they're saying. This is also something that's been invaluable for Simon and myself when he said, it would help me if you did this task. If he's clear on the context behind it and what his goals are for the task, what his vision is behind the task, I may know 5 other things that are behind there, what he's saying behind all of it that I can do to help as well. It's not just about filling the holes where the executive is weak. It's about being able to provide a service that they don't even know they need, which is why you're there. That's definitely something that I learned. I just don't have to do everything that he tells me to do. What he needs me to do is complete a task that builds towards his vision. And sometimes the tasks that he gives me aren't the things that I actually do, but I do the things that help him advance the vision in a different way.
Oh, I love that. That's great. And I think it's always interesting as well to really identify if your executive realizes what it would be like to have you away from them for a significant amount of time, or if they, because a lot of them realize, I should say they don't realize just how significant you are to their success. It's funny as well because whenever we put on these Bell conferences, we have a room full of 200 to sometimes 300 EAs at one time, and during a weekday as well. And a lot of them are, constantly available still. They're on their, cell phones, they're on their laptops. And when we speak to CEOs about the 400 Leader Conference, they're always terrified of what it's going to be like to not have their assistant there for 2 days. We actually had them record some appreciation videos, and it was actually a secret. We didn't tell the assistants, and we didn't even expect many of the CEOs, not that they didn't want to, but just the whole logistics of it, and the ironic thing as well that we knew that they would want their assistants to probably record it for them, and they would put it on the calendar. The assistant would see the calendar for obvious reasons, and we thought it would just be a nightmare. But out of I think it was 270 attendees, we reached out to as many as we could to their executives and someone in their team. We actually got over 70 videos, and It was so phenomenal. And they weren't amateur videos either. These were really professionally done. They had the captions at the bottom. Some of the executives were singing. We had, it was a real pleasure to come into the office every morning and look for our inbox to be filled with these new videos. This was leading up to the event. It was really phenomenal, and we had tears in the audience, and it was incredible just to see how much these executives truly appreciated their assistant, and seldom do they tell their assistant these things. And it was just a great eye-opener for this group of incredible individuals to realize that what they do is recognized, and without them, life is tough. So I just wanted to ask you, what would a week be without you at the helm for Simon?
Well, I would love to tell you that he'd be drooling and just walking into a wall over and over and over again, for sure. Job security. But, at this stage, I personally feel that the true test of an assistant is being able to still provide the service of an assistant when you're not actually there. So I really do try and comb over the week over and over and over again and see it from 10 different perspectives to make sure that it's a well-oiled machine, even with or without me there. There's always going to be an element of confusion. There's an element of confusion even when I am there. But I really do try and make it as seamless and pain-free as possible. There's always, the random question here or there, which I'm perfectly fine with, and the random thing that could or could not go wrong, but that definitely doesn't define me or my job as a whole. So you just have to be prepared for it to be out of the office, and do everything you can to make sure that he or she is taken care of.
That's the true testament, right?
I think so.
Good work is done. Would you say that you've actually taught Simon many key lessons?
Absolutely.
The spotlight's on you, honey.
I think we've both taught each other a lot. As far as what I've taught him, definitely over the years, I've taught him that the most important phone call he makes every day is to me. An executive assistant will sometimes feel like they're the last priority, that they're being a burden, that they're bothering, that they're being annoying when they keep calling and asking questions. And over time, it didn't happen always. At the beginning, there was some pressure and some fights about it, but I let him know that the only way he can get 10 times the amount of stuff done every single day of his life, or 30 times the amount of stuff done, is by calling me every single day. I don't actually work next to in the same place as Simon. In fact, he's in New York and I'm in Philadelphia. So we do work virtually. So that even 10-minute phone call every day is absolutely invaluable for both of us to be able to get through our lists.
And for assistants that don't have that, would you suggest that they approach their executive and ask for that window of time? A lot of them, they say to us every day when we have these conversations that even daily is hard at on some levels. So, but as long as they have, some time carved out that's dedicated to them that cannot be changed, is there any kind of tips you can give on how they should request that?
Sure. Well, from what I have done wrong at the beginning, I think we would used to schedule a call once a week. And it turned into be such a burden. It was so long. It was an hour and a
Yeah.
half long. And it became a burden. It became stressful for both of us that we had to be on this call for an hour and a half. And I had to have this list put together. And if I forgot something, it was going to be 5 more days before I could talk with him. And it put just too much stress on both of us. And I said, listen, why don't we do 20-minute calls 3 times a week, which now becomes we have a 10-minute call every single day. It's easy, it's quick. I get through all my things. If 20 minutes after I'm off the phone call with him, I realize that there was something else I needed to ask him, I don't have to stress out because I will talk to him the next day. For the executive, I will be honest in saying a lot of this lies on the shoulders of the executive is honoring the time of your assistant. That is by far, and I'm sure you hear this all the time. Um, it seems like a lot of work by providing all this context and spending a lot of time with your assistant, and the more context you can provide, and the more time you will get to spend with them, the more they will be able to help you in ways that you've never even envisioned to happen. Um, Again, it's really up to the executive to say, I'm going to honor this 10-minute time. There's times now where Simon will call me and he says, okay, I'm ready. And I go, I've got nothing for you today. Thanks very much. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And he's like, okay, great. Call me later. Are you sure you don't have anything? Are you really sure you don't have anything for me? Because, he knows that both of us have to honor this time all the time in order for the partnership to work.
That's incredible advice. I love that, and we'll definitely share that with our audience when they ask. I didn't think of it that way. I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think it's also funny as well. The executive, they kind of, scream and stomp their feet about anything that is change to them, anything that is out of their usual routine. But once you get them in another routine, and more importantly, once they see the benefits of it, they can't live without it. And I just think it's just getting over that kind of unknown territory of having, say, a scheduled call every other day or something like that. Then, just like you said, when Simon would ask you, hey, are you sure there's anything?
Yes.
I love that. So it's a true testament to to the need of that dialogue and that communication, which is so paramount between an assistant and an executive. And I think that we need to demand that does happen in order for both of our lives to work seamlessly.
There's a quote that I absolutely love that I live by, and it's, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I think that is just amazing in this context, especially. I've heard assistants say, she's just not trying hard. She's just not getting involved. I can't get her to think outside the box and do more. And then I say, well, how much time do you spend with her a week? And they say, well, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. Well, you might have to spend some more time with her and teach her about what your goals, what your vision is, what your priorities are. You're being the barrier at that point to being able to provide them, to not being able to grow, to not achieve more than the minimum requirements for them not growing as a person. You've really got to put the time in on both sides.
And that's why, what we're trying to do more often than not is put a lot of content out there that is aimed towards the leaders and the entrepreneurs and the executives. And just for the audience that doesn't know, Monique and I are going to be doing the same interview in a written context for Entrepreneur Magazine. So we'll send you out the details for that. So this will be a great opportunity for executives and leaders and CEOs to really take a different insight into what it takes to be a great leader for the benefit of the partnership between their assistants. So that's going to be exciting. And I want to also touch upon something that we get a lot of emails about. It's rarely spoken, or spoken out loud in some of our events because it's a touchy subject, but a lot of the assistants that we deal with that want to be indispensable, they tend to give up a huge part of their lives because you're working for a great leader and you know that you have to sacrifice a great deal in order to accomplish all that you have, for example, as a top assistant. Any tips on or any feedback on what you've sacrificed to get there, and is it worth it?
In my estimation, absolutely. If you hate what you do, it's stressful. If you love what you do, it's passion. So I love what I do and I love who I do it for. So I do consider myself extremely lucky. Um, but there is a certain element of things that you give up. I've definitely spent 60 to 70% of the last 4 years of my life on airplanes and trains and cars and hotels and out of my house, and definitely lost a number of friends and certainly a number of relationships because of the lifestyle that I lead. Yes, I definitely work nonstop, but my work gives me meaning, and I believe and respect so much what Simon talks about and what he's really bringing to this world that I don't mind it and I love it. So my first piece of advice is, if you're not aligned with someone who you don't respect or don't even enjoy being in their company, that is going to be a very, very tough sacrifice. And then it's the devil wears Prada. When I saw that movie, it's a scary thought that a lot of people out there are dealing with someone like that. So not being in that situation is my first piece of advice. Um, and again, it goes back to the communication and the setting of boundaries. Yes, some executives will require a 24-hour, 7-day a week position, but that's just because that's what they think they need as opposed to what they actually need. So setting boundaries, make alleviating their fears that something will go wrong at the last minute at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock at 12 o'clock at night. The more prepared you can be and the more times you can communicate with your executive, I think that takes a lot of the pressure off of having to do things at night or on the weekends or setting those boundaries.
And it goes back to what I actually learned from Simon's TED Talk on finding your why. You
Mm-hmm.
know, as long as you realize that the journey that you're on is the right one for you, um, I think that you've got to sacrifice. That's how our leaders became great leaders. They had to sacrifice, otherwise everyone would be great. So
Absolutely.
it's that's the test, isn't it? You've got to put the work in. As long as it's the path that you want, then it's worth it. But again, if it's not, then why are you doing it? It's crazy to me that people continue on that path when they're only doing it for somebody else and they know that they're not going to get anywhere or anything that they truly want out of it. So again, I think it's a time to stop and evaluate what you're doing, if it's actually affecting your life for the good, and if you're on the right path. So if you're on the right path together, then I think obviously you're both going to sacrifice things, but at least you're going to get something incredible at the end of it, and even on the journey. But if you're not, then you've got to stop and think if this is the right thing for you or if this is the right partnership for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We talk about the circle of safety a lot in our work. And if you are really feeling like you do not have that circle of safety around you where you're being trusted and valued as a human being, um, there's no amount of advice or tips that anyone can give you that will make it less stressful um, to be an assistant. It's a hard job as it is.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. I'm sure our audience will too. So in closing, let's leave our audience with something that they can, take with them and implement into their working relationship and their partnership with their executive. What advice can you give on what they can change in order to dramatically improve their relationship with their executives starting this week?
Sure. For the executive, my top tip is however much time you spend with your assistant, double it. Just for a month, let's say, just see what happens, see what's possible. If you communicate, and I sound like a broken record, but if you're constantly communicating your vision and your values and your goals, and you constantly talk about them and you follow them and you spend lots of time with that person discussing how to achieve those goals, there is absolutely no end in sight for where you guys can go together. There's nothing you won't be able to do together. And being clear about your priorities again. For the assistants, figure out how the best way your executive works. And when you get the best answers from them, that's also a delicate dance there. Finding out, do they work best in the morning? Do they work best at night? Do they work best in the afternoon, after a meeting, before a meeting? What questions do they ask you all the time? And then use that information to anticipate and prepare for what can happen next. Um, and just knowing that, no one big thing can happen without 100 smaller details. So I know it seems tedious that you have to schedule meetings and look at the calendar and reschedule meetings and ordering lunch. It might seem mundane and annoying, but it's a piece of a larger puzzle of taking care of someone and helping them achieve their vision and their goals. It's somebody's life. It's someone's work on the screen. And so once you can see a calendar as literally somebody's future and how they're going to achieve their goals, it makes it easier to do the smaller mundane tasks.
That's a great viewpoint. I'm going to take that on board myself in the mornings when I'm saying, "Oh my goodness, back to back again."
Yep. It's little, every single mountain is a combination of a lot of rocks, and you've got to just realize that it's all part of a big moving system, and you're part of it, and every little detail that you do is building that bigger vision.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I've been wanting to do this for a while, as you know, and it's been an absolute pleasure learning from your insights and your experiences and really gaining some great inspiration on what we can do moving forward with our executives. And for the executives listening, what they need to do in order to really improve their partnership with their executive assistant and how to take it to the next level. So we look forward to doing more of these in the future. And also, we want you to look out for our interview in Entrepreneur Magazine. We'll send you the details as well. But again, it's been a pleasure, Monique. I want to thank you from not just myself, but my entire team and the EAO family. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
And thank you again. I speak for every assistant on the face of the planet that we thank you for bringing to light this partnership and just bringing to light the role of an executive assistant and how to make us better and how to make us grow in order to create the larger vision and the larger product. When I started off being an executive assistant, I couldn't find any tools that I could use to help me be better at what I do. And I really praise what you're doing, and I love your courses and your classes and all the events that I've been to. And thank you very much for giving this little rose to us executive assistants who tend to be in the background.
Well, we've got a long way to go, but we have really done incredible things over the last 4 years, and it's great that we're recognized for doing that. But really, it is all down to the assistants that we're involved in, and they're the ones that we get up for every day. So it's just been an honor for us to be able to really be the advocates behind this valiant profession, and it's just time to keep pushing it more and more to the forefront and giving assistants a voice and a platform to really be heard. So we are going to be around for a long time. So
Wonderful.
buckle up, everyone.
I love it.
Thank you again, Monique. It's been a pleasure, and we'll be